Donald Trump has broken every single promise he has made on the campaign trail, except for one, that he wanted to be a dictator on day one. That is the promise he is sticking to, and alongside it, the promise that anyone peacefully protesting his birthday parade would be met with brutal force. Not only will they likely be met with that force tomorrow, but Donald Trump is carrying it out early because a group of veterans were arrested for protesting Donald Trump's military parade in a story we're going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to subscribe to this channel because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into this story, I want to hear from Chris Hayes, who broke down all you need to know about the protest taking place tomorrow. It's important information, so let's take a look.
As this administration has seen, as we are seeing, people are not just going to roll over and let the country devolve into an authoritarian state. And we are seeing this sort of inherent conflict, what has been the story of Trump 2.0 so far, to my mind, come to a head tomorrow, in fact. Donald Trump is holding a North Korean-style military parade, Soviet-style military parade through the nation's capital, something that we just don't do as a country. Like the last one we did was after the first Persian Gulf War, which was celebrating the end of a war. We don't have that here. It just so happens to fall on his 79th birthday. He's even fundraising from it, if you could believe it. Well, you can, of course. Sending out this email with the subject line, quote, "Please help me before my military parade." I'm sorry, that's a funny sentence. My military parade. And of course, Donald Trump has already promised, quote, "very heavy force against anyone who would choose to protest his special day." He didn't direct this at rioters or looters or people that broke the law. He said protesters would be met with very heavy force. And so it's not surprising that in places like, say, Florida, officials are out there talking like this.
If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead. We're not going to play.
If somebody's in front of you and they're threatening your vehicle, you just drive.
Regardless of the threats, there will be enormous peaceful protests tomorrow, all across the country. In fact, from coast to coast, there will even be a few international protests in solidarity against Donald Trump's desire to rule like a king. In fact, we've been seeing a lot of protests against Donald Trump lately, and you might not know this if you watch the news, right? Writ large. There's this organization called Waging Nonviolence that actually tracks this, and it's a very scrupulous accounting. I got to say, I know the people that do it. They're academics. They're serious folks, right? So look at the blue line on the top. Those are organized nonviolent protests in 2025. They are far outpacing the same metric during Trump's first term. That's the green line on the bottom. More mass mobilization happening. Anecdotally, we are seeing report after report after report. I mean, truly, dozens a day I come across showing that regular people of all kinds of different politics and ideologies, even people who voted for Trump, are just not happy about his indiscriminate mass deportation scheme. Voters may support deporting those who have committed serious crimes. The polling would indicate that that's true. What is clear they do not support is deporting friends and family members and their neighbors and their coworkers and chasing people through strawberry fields and their employees. People who, in many cases, have lived here for years. In one case of an individual I saw today, he's been here 30 years. He's got kids and grandkids. And again, this isn't conjecture. Polling bearing this out. Earlier this week, Quinnipiac released a poll showing Trump underwater by double digits on both immigration issues and deportations specifically. Today, a new Reuters poll showing much the same. Voters by a margin of 9 points think Trump has gone too far with his deportations. They disapprove of the government arresting local officials who interfere in immigration enforcement by 14 points. They disapprove of how Trump has handled the Los Angeles protests by 15 points.
I wanted to start with that clip from Chris Hayes because I hope to see as many people as possible out tomorrow using our voices, peacefully protesting, demonstrating, organizing, showing our agency, and almost more than anything, being with community, showing that we do have power and infuriating Donald Trump. That is what we can achieve tomorrow, and we can continue to build from there. We will not be intimidated, even though Donald Trump clearly wants us to be, and that is what he tried to inflict on over 60 veterans today who were arrested for protesting Trump. And I want to take a look at that story.
So my friend Matt, who you guys may know as USMC Angry Vet, was just arrested on the U.S. Capitol steps right here in Washington, D.C. You can see in this video that Matt and a bunch of other veterans went to protest what that man who's mooching off of us in taxpayer-funded government housing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, what he's doing to misuse the military to attack our rights, the very rights that those people fought for, that they fought to protect, okay? They are protesting this big military parade tomorrow that isn't about honoring the military or American values. No, it's about honoring that man, that wannabe monarch, and the only thing royal about him is the fact that he looks inbred, okay? Like, that is exactly what they're protesting. They're protesting the fact that he has sent thousands of National Guardsmen to California against the will of Governor Gavin Newsom because he wants to flex his, I would say, muscles, but all he has is a beer gut from McDonald's, okay? Like, that's what they're protesting, the fact that he sent these National Guardsmen to fight against our First Amendment rights because he's afraid of us exercising our First Amendment rights, the very rights that these people fought to protect, and he's misusing their name. And so they peacefully went over barriers at the U.S. Capitol to have a sit-in on the steps. They didn't damage anything. They did not hurt anybody. They didn't do any of that. They went to go peacefully sit there so that America could see them and understand that they are standing against everything that that draft dodger in the mother white supremacy house is trying to push on us. This is not right. I've been told that the veterans will be taken care of from an organization who will ensure that they get out of jail safe and sound. If they don't, you better believe that we're going to raise hell.
60 people detained following anti-ICE veteran protest on Capitol Hill, 1 injured. Several people who appeared to take part in a protest held by veterans were detained on the U.S. Capitol grounds after entering a barrier and running towards the steps of the U.S. Capitol building. A 7 News photographer captured the moment roughly 60 people entered through an opening in the barrier towards the steps at the Capitol shortly before 7 p.m. The group had just concluded a protest in front of the Supreme Court building and were preparing to take photos near the Capitol building when the incident occurred. Just moments before, a group had called for Congress and the Trump administration to stop deploying military forces against recent anti-ICE-related protesters. They also criticized the Army's 250th birthday parade set for Saturday. The group criticized recent cuts to veteran affairs programs as well. Many of those detained wore shirts that read Veterans Against Fascism. U.S. Capitol Police said they were aware of the veterans' protest, which involved roughly 75 people. 7 News cameras caught the moment officers standing behind another gate on the steps of the Capitol building detained several people and pushed one woman down the steps. Shortly after, protesters then began carrying signs that read, "Veterans say military off our streets and money for people, not parades." Tens of millions of dollars are being spent right now by our government, a government that claimed it was all about getting rid of waste, trimming the fat, making our government more efficient, on Donald Trump's military parade, which will likely be rained out, by the way, so not a lot of watching and enjoyment there. Not like if it was a sunny and beautiful day, I'd be so excited to take in the fascist military parade happening, but that's that. Are we serious right now? This is what we've come to. This is what Donald Trump is all about. He doesn't even like our military. Can he not get, I don't know, like the Oscar Mayer wiener dog and like some McDonald's delivered by DoorDash to the White House and call it a birthday and eat alone because Melania doesn't have it in her contract stipulated that she has to come? Like, can we not just do that? It is gross what has happened, especially with the politicization by Pete Hegseth of our military in more ways than one. And Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs called that out in an important takedown I want to take a look at right here.
As you probably know, I represent San Diego, the biggest military community in the country, so I meet with countless service members all the time. And with your focus on emphasis and on merit and standards, I wanted to tell you about 3 incredible women in our military. So the first woman is a major responsible for advanced collective warfighting training. Her officer evaluation report rates her as most qualified. And some of the comments included are, and I'm quoting now, "She lives the Army values and demonstrates the warrior ethos daily. She rates within the top 5% of officers I've encountered in 18 years of military service." The second woman is an aviator with a record of over 50 combat missions, including deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. 2 quotes from her most recent fitness report in April include, quoting again, "People excel under her leadership, and she has my strongest possible recommendation for promotion." The third woman is an instructor for an Army ROTC battalion. According to her evaluation report, her overall performance was rated at far exceeds standards, and the comments include, she is undoubtedly within the top 5% of non-commissioned officers I've worked with in my 22 years of service. Given their stellar qualifications and accomplishments and their record of surpassing standards, I assume that you agree that the Pentagon and the services should do everything they can to retain women like these, correct?
I would commend the major, the aviator, and the instructor for their service.
Great. I'm glad you agree, because I also believe we should be recruiting and retaining the very best and brightest in our country to serve in the military. And yet, you are actually kicking out these 3 highly qualified service members solely because of their identity. These are trans women. And you are using the very same arguments that have been used against desegregating the military or allowing women to serve or allowing gay people to serve. And in all those cases, those arguments were wrong. So I think it's clear that this is actually not about standards or, and I'm quoting you again, an equal, unwavering, gender-neutral, merit-based system, because if it were, you would be keeping these women in. Instead, you are the one injecting culture wars into the military, and it's at the detriment of our military readiness and national security. Now, General Kane, I'd like to turn to you.
So to be clear, these are men who think they're women.
These are women. I'm happy to educate you on
But these are men,
on trans
and so
issues at another
what we've
time.
identified is that there's mental health issues with that belief system.
I'd like to turn to
that
General
are
Kane
detrimental
now.
to readiness.
Now, I don't know what your individual personal position is on transgender Americans serving in our military. I think anyone who wants to serve our country and is able to should absolutely, in whatever capacity that they can. But the insult added to that injury of Donald Trump, of all people, saying who cannot serve in our military, who can and cannot serve our country, is disgusting. A man who dodged the draft with phony bone spurs, telling people who want to give their lives to protect us that they cannot serve? That's wrong. That is gross. That is Donald Trump's administration. Keeping those out who actually care. That has been the purpose all along. He doesn't want government servants. He wants servants to Donald Trump. It is the Russ Vought quote people who watch this show consistently know we always come back to, wanting federal workers to feel traumatized. That's what they want. They want people to think our government is broken. They want us to think that there is no way out. It is our job to show our agency, our organizing power, and disprove that belief. We got to be doing so every single day. We're going to be covering that on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.